another place my family has. They only have one ISP, so they give you the worst service. You can't get anyone to come out and fix anything,
Nope.
and they know that you have nowhere else to go, so they see no reason to change. That's
So,
Comcast for you.
oh yeah, Comcast is the fucking
It's
a
a mess.
nightmare. They're the
That
worst.
company.
Yeah, we have WoW, and then we have Comcast, and we have Spectrum, but the problem with Spectrum is they're not offered. I wouldn't even take them anyways because they're kind of. I've always heard bad experience with them. I would
Yeah.
personally like fiber. I wish Google Fiber Fi was like honestly, unironically, offered around here because I just need asymmetrical data. And if Google could come in and unironically not be like, I mean, it's your ISP. You can't really like do anything about it anyways. So I would rather pick the one that gives me the best upload and download speeds so that my PeerTube instance doesn't get bottlenecked from a lot of the issues that I run into because I'm running behind like an asymmetrical like network. But
Right.
it's
Well, Google does make, a couple good things like
yeah,
that and the Pixel,
yeah, the Pixel's great.
it is a nice phone. I like it so
Um,
far.
I know everyone in the privacy community has a fucking like they're just like like, and it's like
I know.
it,
I get it. I get it. They have a reputation behind them
but
to uphold.
it's a hardware. It's more of a hardware thing that like Google is good at things. Like they're good at security. We have to admit that, and
Oh yeah.
they're good
Wh-
at
When they want to be.
yeah, of course, and they're good at really delivering a product that makes it easy for people to get locked into their ecosystem. And I mean that from like a genuine standpoint. Like as much as I dislike YouTube, as much as I dislike a lot of the products because like I hate ads, I just hate how the internet works today in general.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
uh, but they make it easy to get locked into there. Like you remember Google Plus? Are you like old enough to remember Google
I
Plus?
do remember Google Plus. I remember that.
And
Yeah.
Hangouts and Foursquare,
Uh-huh.
like you could tell your friends, like, hey guys, I'm checking
I remember when they ended that. Yeah.
into Burger King. Uh, let me. Foursquare is still around. They're just they don't do like the check-in part. They're just like an events app that it's like weird. Like there's a lot of apps that have disappeared, but they're like still like there. Like it's kind of like MySpace.
They just
Like
cut the
MySpace,
funding or something.
yeah, or like it doesn't exist or
No
anything.
support. Yeah.
So I did write. I don't know how this audio is going to sound on OBS, to like straight up, but whatever. And this is something that I kind of wanted to do because I run out of ideas, and I think it's cool for me to listen to other people's opinion in like a long form content kind of like
Sure.
way. And I appreciate you like putting some time aside to talk to me
Oh
because
yeah.
I do
No
want to
problem.
pick your brain about some stuff. I do like your videos because I don't think that there's enough people that actually bring like guides. They just
Yeah,
talk about like
there's not that's what I noticed that there just aren't and when they do, they're basically trying to steer you towards this VPN or
yeah,
there's always a catch.
yeah,
Or it's
100%.
just, it's very few and far between for really, guides that actually protect anonymity compared to, a trust reliant privacy promise.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the biggest gap right now we have is I understand that like people need to make money. They want to do YouTube to make money. That's fine. I don't think anyone really has an issue with that. It's what are you motivated by privacy or are you motivated by like just
Yeah,
chilling
is
like
it
chilling your
passion or is it
yeah
something else? Because
and
privacy isn't a thing you can really make money on YouTube because it's just such a niche thing that you can't expect to make a boatload of money doing that anyway. In my eyes, I mean it's just not popular enough. It's not something they probably even promote that well
yeah
compared to
and I
other
agree.
trending subjects.
And I agree. So even when you look at like the bigger YouTube channels that like do this, like Mental Outlaw, I I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that he does show out because I think it's and from like just from like listening to other people, I think a lot of it's like really like clickbaity and like kind of showing that's not like a shot at him because I think he's an educated person, but it's like he's like more of like a meme, like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He
he
used to do
does
God.
float the whole meme god thing going.
Yeah, and he used to do like
But he
really
does cool
like he
stuff.
yeah he used to do like really cool like technical installs, like how to install and compile Gen 2. And I think
Right.
that's what we need more, because
Yeah.
you have to,
It's also
if
a
you
lot
don't
of
have,
work to put
yeah,
guides
100%.
together because you got to like chop it up just right and you don't want to, you don't want to you may mess up at a point and then you got to redo all that stuff on video and it's definitely more to it than reading a script or,
Yeah.
just going off the cuff even.
And I personally, I can't write. I hate writing, to be honest. I'm a terrible writer. But I do fundamentally think that from a person who's not like a technical person, until like I started getting into like Linux, like myself, and self-hosting, I'm still nowhere near like some of the level that like people like I used to watch a lot of technical guides from what the fuck's his name? He's the bald guy that sits in his chair. A lot of the Linux YouTube guys are bald guys though. So
I was about to say which one? Which one of the
like
bald
there's Luke
Linux guys?
Smith,
There's
not
definitely a
Luke
few.
Smith, Eli the computer guy, he's bald.
And I think
Uh,
even is it DistroTube or something?
I want to say DistroTube,
I think
and
that's his name.
I think it is. He's bald. Yeah, that's the guy I'm talking
I
about
think
though.
he's
Like
bald.
he is bald.
And
Um,
there's nothing wrong with that.
there's nothing wrong with being bald. I just think Linux makes you go bald because
It
uh,
must. It must
how
be
many
that
times
hair
how many times
pulling
you have to
kind of problem.
reinstall
Some with it.
your OS out of something breaking. And
Oh yeah.
so let me just get to this. So I know you said you run Cubes OS, right? Is that
Oh
correct?
yeah, I have a Cubes machine, but I haven't used it a lot lately just because of, it's not on my favorite device and I might put it on a better device. Like the one I have it
Awesome.
running on now is like only 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, of course, I do
Jesus.
have a W530 now with 32 gigabytes of RAM, so I'm thinking about moving it on over to
Woo,
something
8
more
gigs?
appropriate. It has, yeah, the
Damn,
one
bro.
I'm running it on at the time I installed it, I had that one 8 gigabytes of RAM machine. A few years back, I installed it, and I just started to try it. I wanted to try it, and didn't have an ability to expand the RAM on that one. But
Yeah.
now I've got a few things lying around that I could possibly put it on, and I think I might for my
Yeah, dude.
W530, which is a sweet machine. Got I neutered Intel Management Engine and Flash
Okay.
Core Boot and all that. So it's just where I want it to be. And 32 gigabytes of RAM is plenty for
Yeah,
Cube
God,
stuff.
because like, dude, Dom Zero runs fucking like 8 gigs just for.
Yeah,
I
it's a
play.
heavy one. And
It's
I
it's thick.
personally use Endeavor more just because I can get stuff done quicker. You have cubes
Mm,
with all the isolation of everything, the hardware and the
yeah.
virtual machine layers and all that. It can take a longer time. It's also, there's more to it. If you want to record video of your screen, you can record a single cube, or because of the isolation, you can also get like a video card, but I haven't purchased that yet. So that's why I haven't done any actual recording of my full cube screen yet. Just it's
Yeah.
there's more barriers to using it in a quick way as a daily driver, but it's still a great thing to have, for that extra safety.
Interesting. That's awesome. Yeah, I wanted to. So I wanted to actually run Cubes OS only because I like the hardening and the security, because
Oh,
security is
absolutely. It's great.
such a complex topic. Like there is a lot of obscurity that we get like fed to us, and this is why I like GrapheneOS, because and as much as people dislike Daniel McKay's like attitude,
I think,
he's doing
yeah, that is, why get caught up in people's personalities when, we should really not be, arguing about that kind of thing. In my opinion, this is just my own
yeah,
personal stance that, I have
yeah.
appreciation for all the work that went into it. If it's the best, I'm going to use it. I don't really care who
Yeah.
made it, you know? And so
And
that's
my
one
thing
reason I'm
about
trying it.
I agree that like PR is very difficult to like soft like I work in sales. Uh learning how to deal with like difficult people and learning how to deliver a message is a very complex soft skill to learn. A lot of people in tech don't have it, and I understand that, because you trying to explain something that's very complex and then dumb it down and then argue against somebody who has like misinformation is very hard to like not come across like an asshole. So like I really don't care about his personality. I've interacted with him in element and he can come off as rude, but I think he does it because, and this is just my personal take, I think he does it because he probably does get tired of having to repeat himself, and people in privacy section, like the community, does absolutely they misuse or misunderstand something, because let's be real, technology is very complex and constantly changing. Like I personally would love to run core boot, and I have a laptop that won't do it, which kind of sucks. Or Libre boot if I could. Uh,
Yeah,
only because
one of the
I
best
think.
I
Oh,
was
go
just going
ahead.
to say one of the best ways that you can just get up and started quickly is something called 1V Rain. And that is one option for, flashing core boot where you don't even have to disassemble your machine whatsoever. But you have to
Interesting.
pick one of the 30 series of ThinkPads. So like the X230, the T430, the W or T530s, and there's an exploit it uses to then flash core boot using that method. So you literally just burn it to a disk, and you get your core boot image and have that somewhere hosted. Now, of course, this doesn't neuter Intel Management Engine for you, so that's another
Yeah,
process. You have to do the external flashing for that. But for if you
yeah.
just want to get core boot and get rid of any of the BIOS backdoors like Superfish that came out a few years ago, that one's definitely worth looking up. Superfish, where it broke all the HTTPS on all Lenovo laptops around the year 2015. And this Superfish was actually created by a company called Commodia, which actually moonlights as a parental control application, but it actually breaks the HTTPS for all those machines. And this is right in the stock BIOS for these Lenovo machines, to the point where the US government actually banned Lenovo laptops from government use. It was so
Wow,
bad. And it
that's
was
crazy.
started by an Israeli core intelligence programmer for the IDF. So that is something I'm not, saying that it wasn't an innocent parental control. Maybe it was, but
Yeah.
I would have second thoughts about that. But Core
Um.
Boot replaces that type of stuff. So any of the
So
problems in the stock BIOS or,
yeah.
all that.
My question: are you a programmer?
I mean, I work on things, but I don't define myself in that way.
You're not like a programmer by like.
No, I don't go by programmer, no, but I work with some Python, all that bash and
Okay.
everything, but I don't do a
Okay.
lot, very little C. I don't do much of that.
No, that's cool. That's interesting. I'm just curious. Like I feel like you're pretty. It's hard. It's weird when people are like, "You're knowledgeable." If you have no knowledge of something, of course you're going to say anything that's knowledgeable. But I'm, I'm just that's curious. That's cool. I didn't know that about. So I have a think. I don't have a ThinkPad. I think I have a Think Center station. Think station.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember. It's somewhere. And my because I don't really go into like my BIOS too often, to be honest. But I was just thinking about, honestly, I know this sounds kind of weird. I was going to just go buy um, a System 76 because they ship it with core boot, and I know that's got its own problems because you can't really, you have to, when somebody else installs core boot, you have to trust them at the end of the day that they installed it
Right,
correctly
yeah.
and all
That's
that.
why I
Um,
personally just compile it from source code myself, just for that, that extra
yeah,
peace of mind.
100%.
But you
No,
can get
it's
things like skulls. Skulls are pre-compiled core boot ROMs that's trusted by the overall community, and you can.
what's skulls? I'm
Skulls is
interested.
worth looking at. This is a pre-compiled core boot ROM for various different models that you can get to flash it
Skulls.
on your machine. Yeah, check that out. And
How
1V
is it
Rain.
spelled?
How do you
Like,
spell it?
yeah,
SKULL. I think it's either Z or S at the end of that.
skulls.
Yeah.
Because I'm putting this in my notes. Skulls. All right, I'll check that.
I mean, of course, that doesn't involve the neutering of Intel Management Engine. That's something a separate process you'd have to do
Yeah.
if that was something of your interest. But I do know System 76 does provide those machines with Intel Management Engine, further disabled. And I hear they're actually coming out with a more open source motherboard, which is pretty cool.
Based. That is super based. Yeah. I
Yeah.
just I think and I correct me if I'm wrong. I'm gonna do slight pushback because that's just like my personality. I've heard that Intel Management System isn't really a thing. Like it's not something to be super worried about. Not that you shouldn't worry about it, but if you could explain kind of what would be the importance of going to a core boot or Libre boot, kind of from your perspective, and why should we get away from like a closed source Intel management system? Because I know I did read on the EFF that it's not an issue, but it does exist.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely closed source, Unix based Minix operating system, its own computer with access to your network, with access to your screen, with access to every part of your computer. And, it's even running when you have it powered off. As long as it has a power source, that extra computer is running inside your computer. And of course, the AMT is the one that people regard as most threatening because that's the one where the official capacity for remote access is provided. But that's just what's released to the consumers in my eyes, like I mentioned with Superfish, things that are hidden in some of these hardware initializations and BIOS setups that can provide and interact with possible other vulnerabilities. So what you can't see, you can't determine the hidden instructions that could be there. And personally, I just like to, use something as open as possible. Nothing is perfect, but at
100%.
least
Yeah.
at least you have more transparency there with open source.
Yeah, and I am starting to hear more, and I'm gonna touch on more of this in like a little bit later. Uh, I have seen people always disclaimer that open source isn't more secure, and
Right.
I don't understand why that has to be like an asterisk. It I don't think anybody's ever said, oh, I don't think people actually believe like open source is more secure. It's just more transparent.
Yeah, exactly. It's about
And
transparency. It's the ability to look at something, even
yeah,
if,
you have more
you
eyes on
don't
it too.
even know how to read the code, you should have the right to, inspect what your own hardware that you're paying your own money for. It's supposed to be your device. And I just think there should be more transparency there, and that's the kind of thing I gravitate to if I can find it.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I agree. I like to run as much open source as possible. I self host a lot of stuff, not because I distrust these cloud providers. I just know that it's not an if, it's a when
I
they're going
do.
to get hacked.
I distrust
No,
them completely,
no,
entirely.
it's 100%. You should. I think everyone's entitled to like definitely distrust the cloud. My issue with the cloud is not a distrust. It's a issue of if it's not if they're going to get hacked, it's when they're going to get hacked. There's very
Right.
few products that let touch the cloud. I like Proton. They're very open. Most of their, if not, it's not all, but most of their clients are open source. I think we need an alternative to Google, and I think that it's better to have that option and that competition than it is to be like, okay, I'm gonna just stick with Google. You know what I mean? I have no other option to go to. So I think Proton is, in my opinion, besides Tutanota is good. I think those are going to be the best alternatives if somebody's like, hey, I don't want to go set up my own NAS. Nextcloud is too bloated for me. I don't want to use these things. I don't want to self host. I want a secure end to end encrypted alternative. I'm going to go with these. And I think those are good alternatives to go to.
Oh yeah, I think, it comes down to trust just like anything
Yeah.
else. I mean, I think that Tutanota, Proton, they have a good track record, and you
Yeah,
still have to trust them though, because I mean they can change their server side code anytime for a
100%.
court order or something else. So you really do have to still trust them. But for people who don't want to go through the trouble of setting up, encrypted email and something like Thunderbird, they're I think a great option. I really support Tutanota and what they
Yeah,
stand for. I really think they're authentic. Not a lot of these companies. There's a lot. In fact, I think there was one I covered not too long ago. I think it was called Message Safe or something. And it
yeah,
looked like it could be some kind of honeypot kind of setup because of
yeah,
some of the connections it had to some of the contracts that were involved and how there was proof that they actually didn't, this other company, not Tutanota, this other company had not encrypted the emails end to end as they were promising. So
awesome.
you just got to be, people just have to be careful and do their own due diligence on it.
I agree. And the problem is, do you know who Lawrence Systems is?
Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, I love his content. He's actually he made a good point about this one time. He's like, I just use Signal. I don't use anything else. Because when these new flashy great things come out and then they change their policy or something fucked up happens, you then have to migrate to something else. And I just like I think that that's the best like kind of like answer. Like I personally only want to use Signal. Like with pretty much anyone I'm talking to, whether it's like a partner or a friend. And then if they don't want to use Signal because they don't want to migrate all their, I really kind of pissed that they dropped the SMS support, but whatever, I know why they did it. I'm not
Yeah,
like it's
a lot of
it's
people
okay,
complain about it.
but I get why, but it's whatever. Then if they don't use that, then I just use Session or they just write me a letter because at that point,
Yeah.
if it might as well just be allowed to be inspected by anyone.
Right. Well,
So
so does Signal still require phone number for
yeah,
contacting people? See,
they do.
that's a big issue to me. Like for example, I use Signal just with family because, I
Hmm.
don't give out my phone number unless,
That's smart.
it's somebody, you know, I know very closely just for, it's also a
Yeah,
very unique identifier and
yeah,
not that I'm even trying to stay anonymous. I mean, I certainly wouldn't have made a YouTube if I was trying to stay anonymous with all the trouble that you go through just trying to log into
oh
that
my
thing.
god, oh my
But,
god, yeah,
I've logged in on I2P and everything. It's great. People like Stormy Cloud provide the default out proxy server. So you can actually log into your Google on I2P, unlike,
that's
Tor
cool.
where, you're pretty much blocked every turn.
That's interesting. That's awesome. Actually, I didn't know that, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna pick your brain on ITP in a second. It's actually in my notes, which is kind of funny. Uh, but the number thing, I kind of understand why they require a number because they want. So this is my only issue. My only issue with Session. If somebody creates an account and they intimidate somebody, like they impersonate somebody, it's very difficult for the average user to know if that's a legitimate person or not. We obviously know how PGP works, and we did the right thing by sending each other our public PGP keys to ensure that there's a verifiable source of like who we are as people. But I think that if Signal doesn't make, I don't think they should drop the number. I think they should make it optional.
Yeah, same
Because
here. I do agree there because with most people, they're not willing. I found, just using the Pine phone, Linux phones, I found
yeah,
most people are not willing to try new things. I try to get
yeah,
people on XMPP, Dino client, things like that. And
trying
nobody
to servers,
really is willing to move. Once they have Signal, they figure, why should I try something new?
100%.
So
And
that's very
on the
common. And I think that's a big problem with getting people to try other end-to-end encrypted messengers is, the average layman is not even going to try them. And then it's you got to juggle multiple messengers, which has good points and bad points. Good points because you're spreading the risk, but bad
Yeah.
points in that you can't keep in touch with everyone on the same messenger.
And we know that from the FBI and like the NSA and like the three-letter agencies that metadata is 75%. I think it's 70. I could be wrong on the number, but I think it's 75% of all catches. Like anyone who gets busted or anything, it's metadata. This is why I don't use Proton contacts and I don't use Tune Nota. I actually self-host Edisync. Well, um, the server side, and that's the only thing that will ever touch my contacts. And that is the only thing that'll ever touch my calendar. I'll never, ever, ever expose my contacts. Even if I had, like, I don't have social media, like, I don't have Facebook, I don't have, like, all these other platforms that just literally ping you. I don't have fucking Blue Sky. I don't care if it's less invasive. I would rather kill myself than ever get, what is it? What's it called? Threads. You know,
Yeah,
in order to
threads. Yeah.
in order to delete threads, you have to delete your Instagram right on top of it. That's insane.
Oh
So
yeah, they're trying to wring all the data in one under one roof.
yeah, and I do not like that. I think that's a little disingenuous. I think social media should exist, but it should exist um, solely for the reason that it was intended to make funny memes, to say dumb shit, to see what your friends are doing, and then go home,
Right,
and that's
escape
it.
a little escape from reality for a bit.
Yeah,
It's nice. I mean, I'm all about balance. Like, I'm not actually trying to be anonymous on here or other platforms, for the most part. Maybe there's some open source intelligence stuff that I prefer to do privately, but
yeah,
for the most part, it's all about balance. You got to find out what your priorities are and just find a setup that aligns with that. I try not to drive myself too crazy about every little piece of metadata. Obviously,
yeah,
I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just covering privacy, anonymity. To
yeah,
me, I'm really passionate about the subject because I believe that the ultimate end road of mass surveillance is a form of digital slavery. And that's my honest
yeah,
opinion. I believe that's where the world is heading, human autonomy, the end of speech, the end of everything. If
yeah.
there isn't a real collective effort.
Yeah, so I'll agree that I think we are reaching a digital. I think we're already in digital slavery, and I'll just use your word to make it fair. Um, because my issue, so like we're so dependent on like the overall like where's my date, like we're so dependent on these apps, and it's insane. Like I think the internet's
Absolutely,
cool.
yeah. I definitely
I
see
love
that.
I love the internet. I literally love the internet. I think the internet was the coolest thing ever made. I'm a shit poster. I think memes are funny. Um, I also enjoy touching grass every now and then and leaving and just not being on the internet. But the problem is, I had a person that I interacted with at my employment that got locked out of her Facebook. And this is kind of crazy. They got locked out of their Facebook, and that has been their photo storage, meaning that they've never backed up their data for the last 10 years. And they locked her out and they couldn't recover it. And she lost 10 years of her life immediately. That's insane. Like, and
Yeah, that's pretty rough.
I don't want to blame the user always because it's these companies that you're familiar obviously with dark patterns, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. When you're being sucked into these ecosystems so deep, like so deep, it's very difficult for these people to leave. Like I back up my data almost daily now, like either on my server, on my NAS. I do have a cloud hosted provider that I slightly trust, but I encrypt my files anyways, and it's nothing that I'd care if it's exposed. It's just the shit posting that I don't want to lose from like, you know, collecting. And I'm slightly a data hoarder, so like I have a ton of stuff that I like hoarding. But I couldn't imagine putting that all on one platform and then kicking me off and me losing that access. I'd be devastated.
Right.
Like
Never
imagine
put all
you're
your eggs in one basket. The internet,
yeah,
it's like it was always the greatest hope, but it's also turned into the greatest danger with, the amount of surveillance and
Yeah.
people. I believe people in general, when social media and everything, they don't even realize they're under the influence of media when they're under the influence of
Yeah.
media. It's like a
Look at
drug
TikTok.
for people. You see people, as I was mentioning in a video, how people, you notice how they freak out if they don't have their phone. Like it just resembles, a serious problem. And
Oh,
I,
I
I
saw
just think,
that.
how are we gonna break people out of that?
To be honest, we're not going to. We're not going to. So this is kind of like I work with like a lot of young people. So we're not going to. I work with a lot of young people.
Right.
So this is my opinion, and maybe from experience, I switched my roommate to Linux, and I took all the responsibility of helping him and not RTFMing him. Like if he had an issue, if they had an issue at any point, I helped them because I took the responsibility of telling them that you should do this because I think it's better and Windows sucks and it's bloated. So they ended up switching to Linux. I answered any question. Now they don't ask me a question because now they RTFM. And then they switched to GrapheneOS, and they used to be an Apple person, like an Apple stan from birth, because they're their whole family. That's what their whole family used. Look at the school system. Some school systems like literally incorporate Apple. That's crazy to me.
Oh yeah, especially like graphic designs. I know when I was in college, like the whole graphic design
Oh
departments
my
and
god,
the
I know.
multimedia stuff was all Apple products. That's all they
And
used. And they are
that's
good.
kind of
They are
crazy.
great machines for that kind of thing.
But the crazy part is like think about how much you spend on college. Don't you think that you should have the not even like the liberation, but like the right to be able to choose your operating system? You know, there's a video and I can't find it, and it really deeply hurts me because it was such a good video. Back in the 90s or 80s, when when people found out laptops were being sold with Microsoft proprietary software at the time in people's eyes and not an open standard, and they were being charged for it, there was a boycott. There was a massive boycott, and I can't find the fucking video. And it sucks because it was such a relic. They boycotted it by picketing in front of electronic stores asking for their money back because they thought it was disingenuous. Like we've definitely moved away from like people wanting to liberate themselves and just learn how shit works. I think in the next honestly 10 years, if you don't know how the internet works, you're kind of fucked. Like you're going to be either financially like job security wise fucked, or you're going to end up not knowing how to function. And phones themselves aren't that complex. Like but look at the manufacturing problem that we have. Like I love the Pine phone. I dearly love it. I think it's a great thing. If I had to run any two phones, it would be my GrapheneOS and my Pine phone, and that's it. I would never run anything else. Calyx OS is great, but they need to fix their security problems that they have. Micro G is literally fucking a nightmare. You touch Google more than anything, then it's better to touch Google in a sandbox environment than it is to just be literally just syncing all that information over to them through an API. From
Oh
what I
yeah,
understand.
100%. And with Linux phones, the best part is, how customizable they are. You
Yeah,
can I believe they have greater potential for privacy application, but, with security, of course, things like Calyx, Graphene, those types of environments are going to be superior for security just out of the box at least, just like you were saying like with cubes, you save yourself hundreds of hours of work just by picking the right operating system for your use case, So, you can definitely save a ton of time and then you can still customize it to your liking, but at least you saved hundreds of hours, just by picking the right operating system.
God, if I could put if I could log you the hours that I've reinstalled Linux, reconfigured, found something new, something broke, I would be able to be to work. I'd be able to work for Linus Torvald myself at this point. And it's kind of funny how I got into Linux. My Windows machine, I bought a laptop. I was really dirt poor, like more dirt poor than I am now. I bought a laptop for like $200, and I couldn't run Windows 10 on it because it had 4 gigs of RAM. Like I'm like, what the fuck? And I ended up installing what was it? I think I installed Ubuntu first. I'm not gonna lie. And then I went to Elementary OS, and then I went to Pop OS, and then I got a new laptop, and then I distro hopped for a very, very, very long time because I was just like, this looks funner. This looks more fun. This looks more fun. This looks more fun. And I do agree, there are way too many Linux distros. Like, and it's not even like a different Linux distro. Let's be honest. It's just someone like, hey, I want this to ship with NeoVim, so I'm gonna just make a whole distro and just have NeoVim and HTOP pre-installed. And I
Yeah,
run
I've
shit like
tried like 30, probably 30 distros over the last years.
you
So
like
I've been
Endover.
using Linux most of my life, actually.
Yeah, I've so I've used Linux more than I've used Windows. I actually just switched from Garuda to Endover because uh like my snapshot just didn't fucking work. So I was like, fuck it. So and luckily I separate all my partitions and like my sensitive data. Like I never host my OS on my and my file system together because that's just like borderline retarded. Because if your shit ever breaks, it's just not worth it. I tried cubes on my main system because I have more than enough RAM. But the issue is like it's just I think it would be better for my laptop because I do more of my I do more stuff that would be a nuisance on my main PC than I do on my laptop. My laptop I don't really care about anything. Like my laptop could like be deleted tomorrow and I'd be fine with it. Like I would just reinstall another distro, log into everything that I've ever used on it and I'll be good. Like it's and like it's such a like fast like good efficient machine. I got it actually from and this is my advice to everyone. If you ever want to buy equipment like a really good powerful laptop, just go to their IT department like of a business and just be like, "Hey, what are you selling?" Like, do you I know you guys are that's how I got all my servers. Like I have 2 servers right now and I got them from just like a company just liquidating the shit out of them. And it was the
Right.
best decision
I've worked with schools and stuff because I actually, on the side, I do sell core boot laptops refurbished, and schools a lot
nice.
of times have lightly used, computers that haven't been run into the ground like a gamer, in comparison. And sometimes you'll get lucky at Goodwill. I actually got a W530 there. So there's,
Nice.
if you make the right connections, you can find some really good stuff, especially like you
So
say with businesses.
you said that like you don't, obviously don't care about every little bit of metadata. And I know this is something that a lot of people talk about. And
I
it's
just
and it's
prioritize my
yeah.
content.
Like what's you like threat modeling, like you're familiar with it and
Sure.
probably
Yeah, of
think
course.
about it.
Yeah, I did all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Basil is like honestly, I really love his book. I love his podcast. He's a very interesting person to listen to.
I've
Is it
listened to him.
Basil?
I'm familiar.
And why do you think we should move to I2P and what do you think it has its major benefits versus like Tor? Because like I did set up I2P. It is kind of annoying for Linux. I wish they would have a better installer like Windows, like they have for
Right.
Windows. I know they're working on it. I actually run I2P on my phone, which is kind of funny. And that's how I were able to like exchange the email. That was a bitch to figure out why it wasn't working. Um,
Yeah, yeah. I got to set it up on my new phone, so I'm gonna have to be checking out some of the options on Android. I'll probably use. I actually have a profile for it available on my Gidia Onion. That also I wrote a script, so it's got an automated installer. All you have to do is install Libre Wolf, and then you just run the automated installer as a regular user. It installs the custom I2P profile I set up, and then it also creates a command and a desktop shortcut. So all you have to do is double click that. It'll open up the custom I2P profile and it'll start the I2P router in the background. It also has an option for a remote I2PD. So what I have set up, it'll have a remote I2PD shortcut and then also a local Java I2P router shortcut. So you can choose whichever one you feel like using at any time. And I really think like I2P, if it had like a browser, I know that's a lot of extra work for them. So I don't expect that to happen. And I actually enjoyed creating this. I call it I2P desktop for the moment because it's what, came to mind when I made the shortcut. So if you check it out on the Gidea Onion, it's a very easy way for anyone who's listening to get started with I2P. And I'm going to document all the changes to the profile. So if people don't want to trust the profile, they can set it up themselves. But yeah,
Nice.
just simply run bash install. I wrote a bunch of bash scripts for it, and it's got a start I2P that also, when you close the browser, it automatically stops the I2P router. So it's, inspired by Tor browser in that way. But
Oh,
like your
nice.
question was on why people should use I2P, I don't think people should necessarily move to I2P, but to expand their already, a variety of different networks and applications. So if they're concerned about their privacy, their anonymity, whatever it may be, by increasing the number of networks you use, of course, you're spreading the risk. You're not, condensing everything into one streamlined network connection or connections that, you're here and you're there. There's all kinds of I2P sites as well as onion sites for Tor. And with I2P, one of the big benefits is all the users also act as the router. So, with Tor, you have a set number of nodes, and I'm a huge supporter of Tor. I wrote a automated script that installs and compiles the snowflake. So if someone wants to become a snowflake, it's really simple to do. You run the, snowflake script, and it'll actually build it, download it, compile the latest snowflake, and then it also creates another snowflake user with a restricted systemd service that has a 24-hour running snowflake, and you can check the logs, see how many people you've helped around the world get on Tor. So my point of view is we should expand the tools we're using and not move to I2P, but just embrace I2P. It's got a great community behind it, and it's a really welcoming community. I found everyone is very friendly. They have their own IRC server. You can go
Nice.
chat with them, and it's the fact that people become the nodes themselves that differentiates it in a way where if a say a Tor node, like I said, I'm a big supporter of Tor, but the Tor nodes are static. So they're
Yeah.
there. You know what they are, you know their IP address. They could
They have a
be
CA. Aren't they a
targeted
CA too?
in a way.
They're CA too, right?
I'm
Like
sorry.
a central. They have a central authority, right? Like they choose.
Yeah, they are more a little more. It is a little more centralized on Tor, so there is that directory.
Hmm.
And with I2P though, it's constantly changing. That's one of the things I see as a benefit is it's constantly changing. You can also create different types of tunnels. You can, with I2P mail, I mean, it's got its own mail service where you can use what I believe to be the most private email you can get, which is, at mail.i2p and to I2 mail.i2p because
Yeah.
that stays internal. It doesn't even have to traverse through networks. When you're mailing to and from the same server, it doesn't have to actually leave. So that's
Oh.
another benefit of it. And in addition to the fact you can set up all your own PGP offline encryption, so you can encrypt all your emails before they even touch the internet. And obviously, that's the most optimal way. And then you have the benefit of all the users being the nodes as well. So that's
Yeah.
constantly changing. Peers are always being analyzed, so it's a constantly changing thing. It's an interesting network, and it's something I really encourage people to check out. There's a lot of cool stuff on there.
And I hope they do too. Make sure you send me the link to like your stuff, and I'll
Sure,
pop
yeah,
in
I'll
there.
send over a link to the Gidea Onion.
Yeah, because my thing about tour, I like to go on tour because people think like like the people I work with, they're like they think that I'm like either like I'm holding like something deep and dark and it's like illegal, and that or like
People
I'm
always
some
jump to
master.
that. They always jump to
Yeah,
that.
it's
Some
funny.
people just
Uh,
think differently, is how I look at it. Some people,
yeah,
we
I think
all
it's fun.
think
I think it's fun.
differently, really. We all do.
So I actually just go on tour. So I was part of the internet of IRC chat, like will aim like chat rooms. And
Oh
to
yeah,
be com-
yeah. I
to
remember
be
that.
completely
I
honest,
remember that.
I miss the fuck out of them. They're so funny. That's why I like Element because like you can just sit
That
there and
was
just
fun,
listen.
and
It's just a
I
fun time.
actually that was one of the first programs I wrote. Was it was in Perl,
Oh
and it was
God.
actually well before smartphones. So I had no way of managing my servers. So, well, actually, I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't want
okay.
to give out too much information. I'm just thinking too much.
No, it's all right. No,
Don't want to
no
reveal
issues.
too much about
You know,
things.
no one's to,
But yeah, I was
and
able
that's
to manage everything through text messages is all I was going to say. Because this was
nice.
well
No,
before smartphones existed, but I was able to, whatever you call it.
be able to IRC, IRL, touch grass on the internet.
Right,
So,
right.
I,
Well,
I
I just
kind of look.
realized I'm going to cut that out.
No, it's cool. It's cool, man. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's okay. I think there are things that like people do people give up a lot of information about themselves without even knowing.
I know. And
I think
sometimes
it's
you got to catch yourself.
you think you don't even think about it. Me, so my threat model is kind of interesting. I care deeply about privacy on a monetary level. I'm like pretty anti surveillance capitalism. I think it doesn't help in any form of way. There's no good outcome of it on a personal level. So I definitely want to always preach like you may not care now, you're going to care later though kind of thing. And because eventually that capitalism of on the on the data information side will leak into the government and it'll leak into the police force, which I'm not a fan of, and then they'll start using AI to incriminate people, which I'm not a fan of, and
Yeah,
they'll
predictive policing, that stuff,
what's that
it's
thing
already bad enough.
what's that thing in New York, or it's like it's looks for the sounds of like gunshots or something, and it's like really good
Oh,
actually.
right.
It's
Yeah, they have those microphones, and they don't just hear and pick up gunshots. They can actually hear conversations. So they're
yeah, of
the
course.
ears on the street, of course. And you can say it's for finding gunshots, but really
Let's
it
be real.
serves more purposes than that. And
Yeah,
the sad thing about it, like you're saying, surveillance capitalism is the thing that's getting all the funding is the surveillance capitalism. And then we
yeah,
see, great projects out there that struggle to get funding that represent the freedom from surveillance
I
capitalism.
know.
So, I would love to see that change, but it's something I always say is that, innovation is now by finance, where, it used to be by chance, but now everything is planned, where all of the innovation is about meeting shareholder values, increasing
Yeah.
influence, increasing power, increasing,
Hmm.
the amount of data they can collect on us. And,
Stockholders, shareholders, all that other shit. Yeah.
it's sad to see that go that way.
Because look at look at the EFF, look at Tor, look at all these great nonprofits. Look at GrapheneOS. They're actually a nonprofit and a for-profit company at the same time. I don't know how they do that, but they are.
Yeah, I heard about
Uh,
that.
yeah, so it's kind of interesting. And everyone talks about like I'm assuming you're aware of like Louis Rosman, and he made
Oh yeah, I know who he is.
kind.
Yeah, I watch his
I,
stuff. He's got some good content.
he's got good content. I think the GrapheneOS thing was kind of cringe, but and I don't agree with like everything he says. But I think the best thing he's ever said, and I think this goes down to like the ad model thing. If you run an ad block, and which I do, I run ad block. I do that. By the way, I have when I use other people's phones or like I just go, I'm like, hey, let me search something real quick on like someone else like that doesn't have an ad block. I'm like, how do you survive? Like, how do you, or like I forget to turn it on or whatever. I'm like, how do these people survive in this? Like the pop-ups are so fucking bad. Like it's ridiculous. But if you watch someone's contents for 10 years and you ad block and you don't donate $1, what are you getting out of it? And I agree with that. Like, what are you watching this for? Where you can't take and I understand that people's financial situation is always going to be different. I'm very sympathetic to like the working class and like the working class poor in general. But $1 and you get 10 years of information that is invaluable. What's that worth to you? You know, everybody people don't realize that like especially like you probably yourself, like are you monetized on YouTube or you just didn't
I'm
do
not
it?
monetized. I've been eligible for monetization for like
Yeah.
2 years, but I just made the choice for the moment at least. And the
Hmm.
only reason I would ever consider even trying it is because I have heard people's channels, like obviously YouTube is a business model itself.
Yeah.
YouTube as a platform, they have a business model, and of course they're going to, in my eyes, promote channels that are monetized better. So if you wanted to get more
Yeah.
viewership, it may be a good path for you, but it's not something I pursued because I obviously don't want to push ads on people on my
Yeah.
channel. But I thought about doing it as just a little experiment just to see if the channel were to grow, but I have no plans at this time to do it. I've been eligible for 2 years and it's
Yeah.
just not something, I'm jumping into.
Interesting. Probably
Because I'm
because
really
because
interested. I'm passionate about the information. I want to help spread information. So it's to me, it's not about money. It's about creating almost art. I've always been an artist as well on the side.
yeah,
So that's another one of my interests. So creating is a big interest of mine. Whether
it's like
whether
that
it's
one guy.
Python or Bash or other types of arts,
Yeah.
media, and all that. Always a big interest.
No man,
'Cause
you're
that's what shapes the future, art and culture, as they say, life imitates art and art also imitates life. It's a revolving circle. So if you want to influence, use art.
I think yeah, art is no, you beg for money on the internet. Remember that. uh I think I think yeah, art is like a really good model for people to actually look at something and say like this is like powerful to me. It's like books, it's like music. Like I'm a musician myself, and like there's
Oh,
music
nice.
that is um trajected my life differently. Like if I didn't listen to this band, I would never probably met these people. And I think that's something that a lot of people like miss. Like I mean I'm kind of a determinist. I think like your life is pretty like flat out. I
It's
don't
like
really have
the
like a
old Pied Piper story, the old
yeah.
Pied Piper story where, the children are following and the whole thing is art really does influence culture on a level that people don't seem to recognize, but you know, songs can be almost intoxicating. They can
Oh yeah.
completely change your mindset.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I'm into metal. I'm huge into metal, and some of my best friends that I've ever met or people I've ever interacted with was due to like really shitty concerts and basements that I probably shouldn't have been in. Uh, so it's always like a good thing to see like, and it's very hard to like, especially like do YouTube and like try to like deliver your message and like especially like if you don't work on the song like we could talk about this, like, because this one just sparks. It goes back to like me hating the internet. Have you ever looked up a recipe in your entire life, like on the internet?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So I look up recipes all the time, because I have a pretty intense diet, and I don't want to read the first 40 minutes of a recipe about you cooking cookies with your grandmother because you're trying to get fucking SEO. I just want the recipe. So like YouTube's kind of the same way. Like Mr. Beast, there's just nothing but clones of that man. And I don't even have a problem with Mr. Beast. Like whatever. He takes his money, he donates it. But it kind of fucked up the
I don't know
platform.
where he gets all this money, honestly. I don't think
Yeah.
YouTube pays. Some of the stuff he's funding is insane.
Yeah. And I
He's
think
got to
a
have
lot of it
something else going on.
they said he says he loses money. So I'm assuming he takes out
Maybe.
he takes out a lot of loans and he just gets approved for it, and that the money generate consistently generates enough for him to cover like him. It's kind of like when people become like really wealthy, they don't actually own like their stocks or like their assets. They take out government, like not government like loans, but they're like like special bank loans for like people that have like a lot of like accumulated assets. And because they do, they'll be like, hey, we'll give you this loan for like $500,000, even though you don't make any money, at like a 2% interest rate, because they get the lowest interest rates. It's like it's kind of interesting. And then you just pay this back, but your business it generates say 5% like revenue. So like you pay your 2%, you net like 1%, and that's how you kind of like stay profitable. Um, Mudahar, like some ordinary gamers, he doesn't even. He says he'll never look at YouTube as like his primary income source because all these people, and this goes back to like the Mr. Beast thing and like just why I hate the internet. They rely so much on the ad revenue and the viewership and because people just like point out they're like, oh, they don't make money from ads. Okay, you're probably right, but they need the views because those views turns into clicks on their links and their affiliate marketing and all these other shit or this product they're trying to sell, blah blah blah. It makes it so unorganic and very cringe. I miss early YouTube where it was like funny skit, haha meme. I found it randomly. Stumble upon like the website where you could just find a random website. I like unorganic, like I like organic like feeds to me where I can go on YouTube and not get fed a certain algorithm. You know how easy it is to get into an echo chamber on YouTube?
Oh
I
yeah,
did an
you know,
I did an experiment one day.
and they have so
I
much
don't set
filler content. Half the
I know so
video is
bad.
filled with this or that, and you just want to get to the point.
Yeah. And I don't log into like YouTube on my desktop or even my laptop really that often or at all to be honest because I don't want to fuck with my feed and like get certain like videos fed to me. Um, and I turn off like as much like web like tracking and all this much as possible and lock everything down. So I'm try to get as close to as organic as I can. But I did an experiment where I made a fake YouTube account and I did it for three different subjects. I did it on like money content, like finance content, and I literally within 30, maybe 40, not even a minute, I was just fed all this finance content, just endless. And then it turned into red pill content, and then it turned into alpha male content, and it was
Oh
literally
geez,
stuff. It was
I'm
so
so sick of
depressing.
those videos.
I honestly wanted to kill myself at the end because it's so depressing to be around those kind of people. And then I did it on the left side, like like this content, and then it turned into like the woke is trying to turn your fucking kid into a cat, like shit. And I'm like, stop, just give me memes, bro. And then I tried to go down the meme route, and it's like it all turns either into, and I'll notice it. Like I don't have TikTok, but everyone I work with has TikTok, and I just listen. Sometimes I just sit and listen, and I listen to their content, and they're just scrolling, and it's like doom. It's kind of dystopian looking, but they're scrolling, and it's all of their content sounds the same. Like they don't ever break away from the echo chamber, and they're like super sucked into it. This is why, like, I understand like free speech has a constant.
It's all
There is,
political party oriented too,
yeah,
and I think that's where a lot of the funding and a lot of these people, some of these podcasters, I think are just Republican and Democrat operatives. Just
yeah,
like you said, echo chamber. They all say the same thing. It's all
yeah,
the same script. And I don't know how
yeah,
people watch that. I watch all kinds of stuff. Like I'll watch some of the left and I'll hear
yep,
some of the conservative side. It doesn't mean I agree with them, but I want to get the
yeah,
full picture of what I'm looking at.
100%. I used to like Joe Rogan. I don't anymore because I think he's done pretty much what you said, where he just finds people he agrees with now and he brings them on. I used to like Tim Pool, and it's kind of the same thing.
That's
These
funny you
like
mentioned that. That was the one I was, that one. just to me seems like a big can political campaign.
Oh yeah,
The whole
Google's a
time
grift.
they're just like Democrat cities this, Democrat cities
Yeah,
that. That is just such a tired,
it's
story.
it's because it's the money, dude. It's and
Yeah, that's
I
where the
mean,
money is. That is where the money is.
being a grifter
Politics.
today is like the big money. Speaking of grifting, uh, that brings me to my next one. What is your because we talked about we're talking about YouTube. I like PeerTube. I think PeerTube is awesome. I hope in the future gets more growth, kind of like Mastodon. I got to reset up my Mastodon server at some point. I was gonna go to Lemmy, but I decided not to because I have some major issues with Lemmy. Because I know Federation has a privacy problem, like it's a forever, like it can leave data forever, and that's my some of my issue with blockchain technology. That's why I haven't like Odyssey. I have some issues with them, and I think Odyssey honestly should have just went with Monero instead of their own coin. It would have been a way better idea. I'm more of like a Monero maximalist, and then if I'm going to use Bitcoin, it's got to be Lightning because I think
Well, I
that's the
heard
only
library was shutting down. At least the corporation. I don't know how that's going to affect Odyssey.
yeah, which kind of
I don't
sucks.
think it's going to shut down Odyssey. From what I've heard, it's still going to be around, but you know, you never
I
really
think
know.
PeerTube's just yeah. I think PeerTube's
PeerTube's
just a better
great though. I
option.
really enjoy the Federation.
And it reminds me of like old YouTube, like the really fun. Like there's I forget what I think it's Tumblr girl. She's like dating the guy that runs 8chan, I believe, or N-chan. But you know, I'm not a 4chan really user because 4chan's kind of it's kind of gross. But every now and then when I go on tour, I'll go on N-chan and just look at Schizoid's post about the dumbest shit. They're like, uh, my house's walls are controlled by QAnoners and pedos are drinking like baby's blood, and I'm just like, dude,
Oh yeah.
this is the greatest thing I've ever read. Like this can't be real.
It's
But
pure ridiculousness. I don't spend time on 4chan, but I have seen
oh, it's good
some
you don't.
crazy screenshots. But PeerTube, like you said, it's like more like the original YouTube where it was purely organic content. It's not people with their hand out just, trying to find another way to make money or push this product or that product. It's just people who want to make videos for the sake of making videos. So
And
that's, a good thing about it being a smaller community is it's
yeah,
not people chasing after, major viewership. Sure, there's some popular instances, but it's nothing as toxic, I guess if you use that word, as
yeah,
YouTube has become. And even Odyssey, what kind of bothers me is they don't allow you to log in with Tor. And to me, that's just I don't
is that
know.
why
It's
you like?
it's hard for me to go 100% behind anything that blocks Tor logins. But
Yeah,
I do
and that,
support Odyssey as a nice alternative. It's just I wish they would, allow people to log in with that as an option because not everybody is going to know how to set up a VPN or how to set up, I2P proxy or something. So, yeah, would be nice if
it's
they
more
changed that.
it's Molvad Gang IVPN Gang, sponsored by
Right.
NordVPN.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
and
like
this is
everything
sponsored
else.
by JK, not sponsored by NordVPN. NordVPN can go fuck themselves. They're owned by like a massive company. Because
Oh yeah.
no,
Yeah, I think I
Naomi,
did a story about that actually a little while ago.
yeah, Naomi
They got bought
Blackwell.
out by interesting company.
Yeah, she did a really good long ass video on uh, like VPN companies are just pretty much bought out by like big
Who's this?
companies. Naomi Blackwell,
Oh yeah, yeah. I did it
yeah.
I think it was like a year or a year and a half ago. I did it like when it happened. I did a video, but I also did a long write up about it like VPNs, who can you trust, I think I called it on the blog.
So the only VPNs I would ever trust, I trust Molvad because they've came with the receipts. Um, I trust IVPN because you can pay with Monero. I know they got rid of port forwarding, which kind of sucks,
It's
but
always a
whatever.
good sign.
Yeah, and they don't require email sign up, which is even a better sign. If you're talking about like a normie, Proton VPN is straight. Like normie, I think Proton is just a good alternative suite for somebody that just wants to ditch Google Suites. Like, just they like you can't beat the price either. I'm gonna be honest, 500 gigs of storage, encrypted cloud storage, even though they got to work on the fucking apps because they suck. A VPN, you get a password manager, even though you shouldn't do everything in one basket. But if I'm talking about just like normies right now, and then you get a good encrypted email that supports PGP right out the gate, and encryption, password protected. I think that's a great deal for $10 a month. For if we're talking about cost, you don't have to pay for this here, this here, this here, this here. I'll never leave Bitwarden. I self-host it. I'll die on that hill because they've also been vetted to have really good security and they spend a lot of their money on their security. So I know some people are like keypad stands, but I need the synchronization and I'm just lazy. So I self-host it. I just self-host Bitwarden myself, and I don't publicly expose anything, so I'm never worried about it. And I can always VPN into my home network if I really need something. It takes me like 2 seconds. But for like the normies, it's a great option because in like PeerTube, I think it's cool that you can. I think people should be able to self-host a lot. Like I don't think YouTube's going anywhere ever. To be honest, Google's like an infinite money pit. Let's be real. Um, YouTube wasn't even profitable up until like 2014. Like I don't even think it's even still profitable. And I don't really have an issue with like people wanting to make money online. I have an issue when their interest like the money overshadows the genuine content. Like, do you remember Smosh when they were funny?
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that.
That's okay. They were like a really funny, like they did like skits and then they became out of touch. Now they're like too old to be funny. So like they should get off the internet. But like it's like you get a lot of these people that really like sell out once they get so big. And the hated one did a really good video on this, and I think he proved an excellent point. There's no issue if a guy walks out and does a sponsored ad. I think they should do it in the beginning. I think they should state in the beginning that it's sponsored and says, "Hey, like if they're a gardening channel, hey, I just got a partnership with private internet access. There, go down, get the link. I think VPN ads are really bad, but I'm just using an example because there's nothing to do with lawn care. But if he comes out and
Yeah,
says,
I try
"Hey,
not to push VPNs at all just because, there's
yeah,
such a nuance there. Some of the ones you just don't know which ones you can trust. So,
yeah,
I try not to talk about things that aren't clear cut. It's just
that
there's
and
so
like
many things that you can't see and you don't know who has access to the servers. There's a variety of different types of
100%."
ways to access them remotely. So, we just can't determine that. And I just like to talk about other things along the lines of Tor, I2P. LokiNet is nice too. I do
Yeah,
like Session. It's a nice messenger.
the
They
only
can
thing
fix
I don't
the layout a little, but it
they
works.
they should also fix the cryptocurrency thing. I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. I don't have a problem with them being incentivized with the cryptocurrency. I think it should just be switch to Monero because Monero's a lot more concrete, and I don't like that they're from Australia because Australia constantly wants to end encryption for some reason.
I do not like the direction Australia is going. How I
Yeah,
think they even pushed out some kind of law that they were going to threaten companies to put a back door in it. I don't know how that affects things, but
France did
it
that too.
definitely doesn't give much confidence in the country itself. But I do think the people behind LokiNet are, genuine in their interests. But,
Yeah,
when the law comes, who knows? Who
and
knows if
I
you're
know
allowed to have secure encryption in the future?
they have an issue called where they don't do forward secure perfect forward
Perfect
security.
forward secrecy.
Yeah, they don't implement it. And I think that's why a lot of people that are in this, they do pass on it, which is justifiable, but it's not enough that you should be worried. Um, so I don't know. I like Session for two reasons. A, I like the look of it personally. It's clean because I think everything should be dark mode. Light mode should be illegal. If we should ever ban anything, it's light mode. Light mode is like the worst thing ever. Um, and I think it's like the fact that it's very similar, and I see what they're trying to do. It's very similar to iMessage because iMessage is kind of clean, like from a UI, like a UI perspective. Because what the fuck does Android users have? RCS?
Yeah, I've never been an iPhone user, so I know
Mm,
of iMessage and I'm familiar with it. But I hate to change the subject, but did you hear about Google's Web Environment Integrity project? You should definitely check that out. It's a huge threat. They're trying to verify. It looks like it's an attack on ad blockers, but I was just pulling it up. I'll send
oh
you the
yeah,
link, but it's
yeah.
pretty
Send me the link.
serious. And read the issues; they are hilarious. You just got to read this. I'm sending
There's
it over.
what's the other? They're moving away from RCS though, which is kind of a good thing because RCS requires um I'll send you the message. RCS requires what's the word? It requires carrier integration, and now no carrier is really integrating it. Like I got RCS luckily, but I would just rather use Signal personally if I can. If I can't use Signal, then like because no one at my fucking work, everyone has an iPhone. It sucks. But I'll
Yeah, I
definitely check
wouldn't
out
use
that. Yeah,
anything outside of, your own independent, self-hosted clients using data connection only. That's just,
you
the smartest way to do it.
you know what I would love. I wish was more of a thing, and I wish more. I would wish it came out earlier, and I wish it would push people to it. Quitch. It's CWITCH. It's completely self-hostable. You can route everything. It routes everything to Tor by default, and no metadata. It's like, and it's got group. It's instant messenger. I think that would be the like Briar. If you're familiar with Briar, it's kind of like Briar.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I
I love
just
Briar.
installed Dryer. Haven't tried it. I actually did try it on a desktop and I was trying to get it running on the Pine phone, but I ran into some issues, so I just kind of put it away for a little bit. But I am planning to try it. I do love the ability to use Bluetooth and everything
Yeah,
for
it's a.
local
I
contacts
know
that
mesh
are
mesh.
completely independent of the internet.
I know mesh
It's
networking
great.
is such an interesting thing. Quick on that, there was something called the BAT protocol that was trying to be. I tried. I looked really into it. It's not a thing anymore. It got abandoned. Of course, everything cool that you get interested in is like gets abandoned. Um,
Yeah.
it was a way to set up a mesh network with where you could all like communicate and like run web servers. It was not encrypted, but it was still super cool. Like I would love to get my ham radio license at some point because like I'm really interested in like radio waves and like the way that like communication can happen. Even though like radio waves got like its own like privacy issues, but just as like a fun thing, I think like how the internet works like that is kind of interesting. Like you could be in the middle of fucking nowhere and still be able to send text messages. You can actually run email over radio waves too through like a ham radio, which is kind of funny. It's through like a
Oh
program.
yeah, I mean,
And
Wi-Fi, all that's radio. So, you can do a lot of stuff now where the law comes in, that's another story. You might not be
yeah,
allowed to do some things like encryption is heavily regulated for ham radios. You can't
yeah. I saw
really
you set up
can't really go that route.
what's it called? Low with your Pine phone, the module,
Oh yeah, the LoRa,
Laura.
long
What's the
range, low power radio.
what's the purpose of that?
Well, just like you said, you could do mesh networking, you can join things
Okay,
like the Things network. It does have its own protocol, the LoRa protocol, which does implement encryption their own, but it's not like open source or anything. So that's the only downside there is that it's very limited. You can only send very small, messages, but you could if you write something up, you could write something to build bigger messages, of course. So yeah,
that's
that's
awesome.
something I've actually been doing the Pineadio gateway image. So that's something I release every few months lately, just because I've gotten a little busy. with other stuff, but I still am doing that. So if anyone tries out the Pinedio Gateway, I have the image that I work on for that. That is another option with radio, LoRa, long range, low power radio. And they have modules for the Pine phone. You have the USB ones. You could use that in the Pine Tab 2 or another computer, any computer really. And then the gateway, it's kind of like the Pi. So it's got a A64 LTS board, and then the actual LoRa module is on that using a Pi hat, and you have GPS, and you also have, so that way for
Really?
location and everything. So yeah, there's a lot you can do with it. Some people use it for helium. That's one of the popular networks where you're actually like mining and helium using radio. And there's a lot of interesting projects out there. I've even seen some that have gone as far as to integrate I2P and Tor with LoRa, which is a pretty neat concept to
Huh.
integrate all of them. So
Yeah, I'll have to like look into that for the funsies. That sounds super cool. And I won't keep you too much longer. I just got one more thing that I wrote down right
oh yeah,
here.
no problem.
Uh, um,
And yeah, if you
what
could
it?
send this to me, that would be great. If you could send
Yeah, I
it,
will. I'll
if you're
definitely
recording, that'd be
send it
great.
to you. Absolutely. I hope the audio is fucking good. I'm kind of
Yeah, it
guessing at this
sounds good
point.
over here. Sounds good.
Yeah, it's the OBS that I'm worried about. Cause like it says record, but I'm guessing at this point. If not, I'll kill myself later. And um, so you just jumped on GrapheneOS. I love the Pine phone. I hope the future for it gets like much better. Unlike the Lineage phone and like Purism, which has been a fucking nightmare. They're overpriced in my opinion. GrapheneOS, do you think that we should, because like from a manufacturing side it does suck, and from a threat model side I think it gives people more like liberation, because when you look at like these $1,500 $1,200 $1,000 phones, they only give 3 years of security support updates and patches, and most of them come with fucking bloatware like Samsung
Right,
literally Samsung
exactly,
this Samsung this
exactly.
Samsung this. If Apple actually open sourced all their hardware and they quit being a bitch, and they decided to let me sideload apps that I wanted to, I would have honestly gotten an iPhone, because they get 6 years of security support updates and software updates, and I think that's the most important. Because think about how much you run on your phone from a security standpoint. Once you're out of updates and it's hacky and it's cringe, like the Brax phone, like Rob Braxton. Honestly, I could rant how terrible his products are for like ever. Um, the fact that a lot of people get like misguided in this field, and there's too many options. Do you think that we should just
Well, I'll
downsize?
just say, I like Rob Raxman's content, so I just want to throw that in because I don't want to, jump on the,
I don't like his content.
I don't know much about his product, so I don't. All
I
I
don't
know is
like.
I
Yeah,
think he's genuinely, honest as far as I,
yeah,
can see, and that's my own little 2 cents. So I think he's
yeah.
a good guy, but that's just my
I don't think
side.
he's disingenuous. I think his products are I think the products he sells aren't disingenuous. That's just my opinion, and that's from listening to like other people and like
Yeah,
this.
everybody's entitled to their own opinions. I just didn't want to
No,
be
of
part
course.
of anything. I
Oh yeah, of
try to get
course.
along with everybody, and so I got
Yeah,
nothing but good
there's
things
nothing
to
wrong.
say about him.
There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just looking at it from a a purely security standpoint. Like,
You
I
probably
think
have more information than I do. I don't really know much about him, other than I do
no,
know
that's
he's got a de-Googled phone out now,
yeah,
which I don't
not
know much about it, of course, because I ended up getting a Pixel and just doing it myself. But
not a fan of
I
it.
guess it's
Only
another option.
I think the options are always great, 100%. Like Calyx OS, I think it's fine. But it's just the micro G and the hacky updates that they like push, like the very like lag behind. I think that when you compromise your security, you compromise your privacy to like a very level, like a high level. Think of it like cubes. Why do you think cubes is such a strict system? Because if you allow to have if there's like a vulnerability, or if there's an issue, that can potentially leak a lot of data um, from it. And I understand why people like Brad Braxton. I think he brings a lot of really good content in the terms of like a palatable sense.
Right, it's also good content for people who don't know where to begin,
Yeah,
and,
100%.
it's a good place for people to, get involved, get, somewhere, a good starting point, and, he shares some useful information. I do have to say, I agree with a
Yeah,
lot of his points.
I think
But
from
I
like
don't
in
watch I'm not gonna say I've watched every video. I've
no, of
jumped
course
on
not.
streams here and there, and I'm just going by that.
And but my point is, from like a security standpoint, I think we need to push uh forward to better. I think a more minimal, like kind of like less secure messengers in the sense of like just make the ones that work are good, and make the one and consistently test like the resiliency kind of like thing. Because
Oh,
I
you'll
know for
never get
competition,
everyone on the same one.
oh, of
That's
course not.
that's never gonna
That's
happen.
never that's never gonna happen. I know, but like
But it's a
Graphene
dream.
OS, I think is the best phone from from a privacy and security standpoint because of the sandboxing, and I think it's the best way that we could get people away from like the Samsung's bloatware. I wish Samsung would just downsize the amount of phones that they fucking have, because
I
then they
think
could
a
increase.
problem is, people just have no idea how much of this bloatware comes on their phones. They don't see it.
Yeah,
It's always in the background. So it's not something they can observe with their eye. And so, of course, they are thinking everything's fine and they just use it like they would any other phone. But, it's collecting massive amounts of data on them and reselling that data, raising their insurance rates, making it
yeah,
difficult to get a loan, all of that crap. Even the bank, one of the what's that World Bank actually came out with a blog post saying that we should have all of our internet history tied to our credit score and have it affect our ability to get loans and everything else. So,
social
the
credit
threat's
score.
there.
Yeah,
Yep,
and
social credit score, all privatized.
yeah, and the thing is like I think there are certain parts of like the state that they should own businesses, and it should be regulated to like a certain degree, because I think it's good if it's state owned, you can control more who can get in and get out of it from like a democracy standpoint. And definitely like the age needs to like lower in our like congressional era, just like personally, because like half these fuckers don't even know what a router is, let alone how the internet works. And that's like my own issue. But I think from the bloatware is like my biggest issue. Like, look at what Samsung comes with, or like these $100 like Android phones, because you can put Android on a toaster with these phones on there.
Oh yeah, I used to
Like,
have one of those. There's $90 Android phones, or one of the
yeah,
the worst one I think is the BLU brand. Have you heard of them? They are
yes, yes,
the absolute worst of the bloatware, spyware, adware. Yeah, they're cheap. That's nice. It's got a camera, you can use it, but who knows what
they
the
can see
hell
it
else
too.
it's doing.
Like, there's phones in like Korea that like if they after like 2 years, like they'll run ads for those 2 years. Like you'll get ads. That's why they get them so cheap, because they're like 80, $90. And it's in like, yeah, I think it's like even South Korea. Like it'll be like, yeah, $90, but you have to upgrade every 2 years because we don't get patches or security. But you also get ads delivered to you. That's insane. Like that's like crazy to me. And I'm kind of glad, like from like a personal standpoint, that like Daniel McKay stepped down from like to just get rid of the drama that's like involved with GrapheneOS. And I'm kind of happy that the direction they're going to, because I think that it's important that people be able to hang on to their phones for as long as possible, because I hate e-waste personally. I think it's such a consumeristic idea that we're really bred into. Kind of like how you said you don't like it's good to step away from your phone every now and then. I think if we got to hang on to them longer, that people would be able to step away from their phone a lot more.
I'm
And
mostly a computer user myself, and all of
yeah,
my
same.
machines are several years old. but they run better than a lot of the ones out there today just because I put Linux on them. I've upgraded the
Yeah.
hardware where possible. They're more modular than the ones that come out now where you have the RAM soldered right to the board, so you got to get a whole new motherboard.
Just get a
So it's
framework,
a bunch.
man.
Yeah, yeah, that's another option. I like old ThinkPads though, personally.
I know they're so cool
They're
to
they're
me, but
beautiful.
the middle red button, ThinkPads
The track
are
point,
excellent.
yeah. Yeah, track point.
It's I would honestly, if I were to it'd be a framework if I had to switch out my laptop, but they don't support Core Boot or Libre Boot. I think some people said that there's a community support for it, or they're going to implicate it or something. If they were to, because they're so modular, I would personally, if it wasn't GrapheneOS coming along, I would have gotten a Fairphone because you can hang on to it for 10 years and you can run Kalex on it. But and it's completely fixable. Everything's repairable on it because I'm very
Yeah,
forward to
Fairphone
repair.
looks like a good project. I've looked
But
at it, scoped it out a little bit, but I haven't really
you can't
delved
buy
into
one in
it
the
because it was
U.S. You
never
can't buy
one
it in
I
the
was gonna
U.S.
get.
It's fucking
I think they
stupid.
even have Sailfish, or it's either that or EOS. I don't know which one was it that I was
Yeah,
looking at,
EOS is
but
cool. EOS is
EOS is
cool.
another good option.
I
But yeah,
just don't like.
graphene, I love it. It's awesome. I'm really happy with this phone so far, and I'm looking forward to covering more about, some of the things because it's been like 4 years since I've actually had a Android daily driver, and everything's a bit different now. So I'm like going through the ropes all over again. But it's fun. It's a great device, performs excellent. The camera even beat the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which is really shocking to see the
Yeah,
6A budget version beating the
did
iPhone camera.
did you get it on sale? Because dude, I'm pissed. I bought mine at
Yeah,
the wrong
yeah,
time.
I got a pretty good price. I mean, I got it for about 3. It
That's
wasn't
so
bad.
great. Yeah, I saw it for like on sale, and I got the regular six. I should have gotten. I was really cool with the 6A. I'm glad I didn't go with the 7 because it's got a glass issue on the back where the the back of the glass um screen like camera will like crack under like the slightest pressure. It's a
Yeah, and the
manufacturing issue, but
glass back on the phone itself, I hear cracks really easily on the expensive ones. But the 6A has a plastic back, but it feels just like glass, but it's more durable, won't crack as quickly. So, yeah, I'm pretty
yeah,
happy with the purchase. I think it's a really great model phone.
that's awesome. I hope you do a ton of content with it, man. I'm
Yeah, I'm
trying to
looking
do
forward
this
to it. I mean, my videos, hopefully I'll be able to increase some of the video quality with it
the
because I
video
was using an
quality.
old Android, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
you're like, here, guys.
recording.
Here's my cool pad or my HTC.
Yeah.
Awesome, dude. I appreciate you coming by and
Oh yeah,
spending
of
the
course, of
last hour
course.
with me. I'll probably do
Yeah,
more
it's
of this.
fun.
I definitely want to get more people like involved because I think the best way to push this kind of stuff is community and like bringing people
Absolutely.
together instead of being device. So if you ever want to come back on and just sit and rant for like an hour with me, let me know, man. You got
Yeah,
my
man,
email.
for sure. Yeah,
Thanks. I
man, we'll have to
appreciate
do it
you again.
sometime again in the future.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll send you a once I'm done.
Yeah,
I'll
you could chop it
um,
up or whatever you plan to do with it. I don't need the whole thing unless you plan to leave it as is. It's up to you.
probably leave as is. I suck at editing. But
Ah,
I might leave. If I'll send you still the raw if you want to edit it.
yeah, that'd be cool. If you can just send me the file, that'd be great.
Not a problem, man. All right, you have a wonderful night.
All right, perfect, man. I'll talk to you later.
I'll
All right,
talk to you.
later.